Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to wake up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hajavandi and Corey Clark.
Regulators. We regulate any stealing of his property. We're damn good, too. But you can't be any geek off the street. Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Regulators! Mount up. It was a clear black.
That's right. What's going on, everybody? It's Wake Up War Chant. I'm Aslan. Corey Clark's usually here, but we got Five-star Schoffel on this Thursday. Let's get it, man. Ira, how are you, man? Thanks for being here.
I'm good. Thanks for my regulator music. I appreciate it, as always. Gets me in the mood.
Well, you know, it's also 90s week here on Wake Up War Chant, brought to you by For the Table Hospitality, because the spring game's a quote, throwback game, right?
That's true.
It's throwback. Sorry, I'm wiping my mouth off there, trying to eat some food. My life is difficult right now. Throwback end zones. No throwback unis, though. Ignition tradition, but they're going to go all white. I guess the gold team, and then the garnet team's going to be all garnet, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can't do it. You can't do everything throwback. They're going to, but there's certainly going to be plenty that is, and certainly, you know, I think they're talking about 300 former players are saying they're going to come out. A lot of times those guys say they're coming, don't always all show up. But, I mean, if they have 200, 250, something like that, it would be crazy. You know, it's going to be a fun time.
How do you feel if you're the other guy and you hear about all these other guys coming back for the new guy?
You know, that's it's funny about that topic because we see everything as black and white. We see everything as you know, this way or that way.
I'm
polar
colorblind.
opposites.
Ira, I don't.
That's what I love about you, Aslan. Yeah. But people like to see everything is one way or the other, and the reality is that a lot of the former players, a lot of the former players felt welcome with Jimbo Fisher as well, but probably not this number. And I think what the biggest thing is, it's not that he wasn't receptive to them, because he did reach out to them. I remember talking to Snoop Minnis and guys like Willie Jones, who was not a high profile player, guys that we covered in the early 2000s as well, who felt like Jimbo Fisher was willing to accept them in and invite them in and would talk to them. I think what you're seeing now is not so much that Jimbo wasn't receptive to them, it's they're embracing what they're seeing. They like what they're seeing. Not that they didn't like the winning, not that they didn't like the national championship, but I think they do like what they're seeing and what they're hearing from the players. I've talked to people, we talk to the current players a lot, but I've talked to a lot of former players, guys from the 80s and 90s who are just really excited about what's going on here because they see what we report, they see what's out there on social media that the kids are saying, and they're just happy. I think they're happy for the kids in the program that there's a lot of excitement. Again, that's not necessarily – everything's not a referendum on Jimbo,
The tweet, though, from Terrence Brooks, quote, geeked up about Dem Knowles this year. Wouldn't trade in that natty, but would have loved to experience the Coach Taggart era. You won a national championship, man. He's like, that was kind of cool, but, man, I really wish I would have had this guy as my coach. That's the way I read it.
Yeah, again, I mean, I think it's I think they're embracing, again, just the excitement and the fun that they're seeing at practice. I mean, look, those teams that won, and, we've talked about this before and we don't have to belabor it, but in 2012, when that team wasn't, they won 12 games, they won an ACC championship, won an Orange Bowl. On paper, it's a really good-looking team. There was a lot of problems, not problems, but there was some mistrust, I guess, from the players.
Disharmony?
It just wasn't what you'd probably want it to be in 2012. But then, man, Jameis, just lit that switch, and then you had coaching changes, 5 or 6 assistant coaches leave, and then you get new assistant coaches in. It's a different vibe. Some of those guys fit better. And then, again, Jameis and his personality, and then that group of leaders, that was kind of it all kind of gelled and came together. So a guy like Terrence Brooks, he was here before that championship run, and he was here. I can't remember, did he graduate in 2013 or did he have one more year? But either way.
I think he graduated 13.
Okay, well, see, but the first couple of years, it wasn't always, rainbows and winning national titles. They, remember obviously, we've seen, there were losses in 2011, 2012 that were really difficult. And, So it's not like their entire career was just glory. I mean, they really, especially those 2013 kids who weren't here for 14, they had that 1 year that is really, really special. So I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, like he said, I mean, he wouldn't go up as national championship, and this new staff hasn't done that yet. So, they've got all the excitement right now, but they're going to have to produce too.
I wonder how much of it is, the fact that it's such a grind now. It's a career there in the NFL, and then they wish they could go back to college, and then they don't. Not only will they go back to college, they play for this guy, this young, hip, energetic guy who drinks only 1 cup of coffee, about 8 ounces. A lot of cream and sugar, though, he said.
He said it's like Kool-Aid.
He's like I heard like a milkshake. That's how I usually people are like, I like your coffee. I'm like, I like it like a milkshake. Sugar, cream, lots of it. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool to see. I can't even imagine. I can't even really wrap my head around 200 former players on a sideline. That's a big number.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of the photographers who aren't real thrilled about it.
Yeah.
And you probably can relate to that, having to do some TV footage. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be the other thing about it is, some of those guys, it's not like they're all Peter Warwick. It's not like they're all super duper stars. So it's going to be like, I mean, is Willie going to is he going to try to introduce himself to all these people? Or, I mean,
like if Eric Bro shows up, like, hey man, what's going on? How's your dental business treating you? Excellent. Come around sometime. Do something.
That's ripped straight from the War Chant message boards.
WarChant.com. Hop on over there right now. Get your 30-day trial. You'll become a member for life.
Find out the latest with Eric Bro.
Yeah. He was back there in 2001, 2, the start of the lost decade. But as we're landing this plane, I mean, there's only one more practice. That's today. And then, obviously, the spring game. I mean, has anything kind of stood out to you the last week that we've been able to get some access? And, man, we don't even have to wake up early for the practice on Thursday. That's pretty sweet.
That is nice. The past week or so, I think that, again, I wrote about it the other day about the lack of bodies on the offensive line. It looked like they had a couple guys back yesterday, so that was positive. Alec Eberle did some things. He hasn't really done anything. I don't think he was full go, but
was he bouncing around?
He was participating
or was
some.
things?
He was participating. Yeah, I don't know if he was bouncing around and doing things or just doing things, but he was out there. Abdul Bello, one of the backup offensive linemen, was back out there. So they got a little bit more depth there. I think that's, to me, I'm really curious about this spring game because, I know everybody wants to see the offense. That's what everybody wants to see, this thing go at the high tempo and see these skill players. DJ Matthews, they've heard so much about Tamorian Terry and DJ Matthews and obviously Cam Akers, and they want to see these guys do Trey McKitty at tight end.
And Cam Akers will be playing, Willie told us.
That's right.
Cam Akers will be playing, everybody, so you get your full value.
So it's, I think that's where everybody's going to pay attention. But from all indications, at the scrimmages in 11-on-11 for the most part, the defense has kind of dominated this thing, which you'd expect. I mean, you're putting in a brand new offense, and it's always harder to get offense going anyway. So it makes sense. Plus, they're so thin at offensive line, particularly at center. So it's understandable, but that's what I'm curious. I'm wondering if Willie Taggart can do anything in the spring game to facilitate the offense, no blitzing, they do in those All-Star games,
right?
Something to kind of call off the dogs because people are not going to be thrilled if they're not going to understand. They're not going to be understanding if they go out there and this is the debut of the Willie Taggart era and it's 3-0 gold.
He'll get a pass, I'm sure. Well, he mentioned, he didn't mention it, but, guys like Adonis Thomas were talking about the pace is so hard for them to keep up with. He's just it's hard to figure out where you have to line up when they're going so fast. So, perhaps they will. And listen, I know defense is always ahead of the offense this early in the season and et cetera, but listen, defense doesn't have Marvin Wilson, no Josh Kando. These linebackers, I don't know how many programs in the top 25, if they could have an expansion draft and just poach one guy from, any other team that was in the top 25, how many of them would go after any of Florida State's linebackers? The secondary is replacing 2 new safeties? Derwin's gone.
Natural Dean started some late last season.
Trey Marshall's gone. Yeah, because Trey Marshall would always be suspended. So, I don't even know really how talented this defense is. On paper with the stars and the Rivals ratings, yeah, but, this is not a 85 Bears steel curtain defense either. So this offense should show some signs of what people are expecting best case scenario with Willie Taggart.
Well, I agree with you, and I don't agree with you. On the one hand, I agree with you that this
Clarify yourself.
This defense is not going to be. I don't think this defense is going to be like an unbelievable defense this fall, especially with the style of play they're going to play on offense and getting so many plays. Plus, they are very young. This defense is extremely young across the board. Like you said, they lost several defensive backs, lost all 3 starting linebackers, lost a couple starters on defensive line. So it's going to be a young defense. There's no question. But that doesn't mean they're not ahead of this offense, which is putting in a whole new system that's like going from reading one language to another. I mean, it's a big deal to make the switch that they're making. And you're right. Yeah, there are times when the offense gets in a rhythm and the defense is having a hard time getting lined up and they can't match up and all that stuff. Then it makes it hard for the defense. But, I think this offense is having a hard time just lining up themselves sometimes. So, they've had 12 practices, and that sounds like a lot, I guess, or 12 or 13 of the 15, but it's still only 12 practices. So I think that it's, I'll think there'll be some big plays from the offense, but I don't think it's going to be a smooth machine by any stretch.
But it'll be enough to keep everybody happy because it'll be fast, it'll be different, and everybody likes something fast and different these days. Nothing wrong with that. Let's step aside for our first break of the day. We'll be right back with more Wake Up War Chant right after this here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Not only does Five-star Schoffel grace me with his presence, boost my ratings, our rankings, also giving really good requests on the music. We're keeping the 90s, keeping it with the genre, and then dropping jewels like that. Thanks, Ira. This show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. It's Wake Up War Chant. For the Table Hospitality is those 3 great locations over in the Collegetown District, Madison Social, Central, and Township. I'm sure lots of you folks will be posting up at one of those places for the spring game coming up, man. Garden and Gold game, 6 p.m., Doak Campbell Stadium. What, $10 admission or $5 admission?
$10, buddy.
$10, all right. Well,
but it gets you the concert, too.
You got a concert, you're right.
Who's Corey requesting? Like Soundgarden? What's he?
Bush.
Yeah, I can see
Four
that.
Non-Blondes. Oasis, yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Clark, man. He's got a music palette that's out there.
He's got some,
very
that young angst. He still got it.
He does.
He's hanging on to it.
So I think like I rage all the time in here. So he's kind of like, he's in his cage. He's like, gosh, this guy, because I complain all the time. So he doesn't want to, rage out against anything or lash out. So the Cork will be back tomorrow. We'll do Renegade Express tomorrow as well. Ira's just, a $5 million rental player, free agent that we're just picking up.
Pick me up for the playoff run.
Yeah. 10-day contract, but big time dollars. All right. So, obviously, Lethal Simplicity, it's on T-shirts. It's not on billboards. It should be on a billboard, though. Maybe it was on a billboard. I don't know.
It might have been.
Might have been on a billboard somewhere before I got to Tallahassee. But it sounds like it's probably going to be spreading to the defense. We got to talk to Adonis Thomas, who I have some good-natured fun with Corey on the show about because, man, just like junior college guys, I mean, Walter Jones was pretty decent, right?
He did okay.
He was all right. But by and large, I feel like especially on defense and especially at linebacker, Florida State has just not had a lot of good luck when it comes to junior college transfers at linebacker.
I guess you've forgotten like Nate Hardage?
No, I have not.
I think maybe that slipped your mind.
That's who I would immediately point at. So, Adonis Thomas committed to Bama or Georgia?
He was at Alabama.
Bama, yeah, because he's from the state of Georgia.
Yeah, he was there for a year. Well, he was on the team for a year. Yeah. Didn't play a whole lot.
Then he went to junior college and then ended up in Tallahassee. Anyhow, he's kind of coming on in practice, and they put him in front of us yesterday with the cameras and everything. So we kind of asked him. Basically, he's saying that, I guess there's this perception that with Harlan Barnett being here that this defense is going to be more aggressive. He explained why.
Oh, yeah, I think they're thinking less is what everybody think, having us playing more aggressive, because we are thinking way less. It's less like it's more attacking, like a one-gap read, one key read. You still have to read 2 or 3 teams before you can attack.
So that was Adonis Thomas talking about the fact that they're having less keys, I guess, to kind of read. So they have their one task to go after, and if it's not there, just go ahead and do your job, I guess. Willie followed up and said as much. We talk too much. He says we talk too much of these kids. We overcomplicate things. Coaches have all the time in the day to go over schemes. Players have to juggle relationships and schoolwork and all that sort of stuff. So just make it easy for them. It's just, I know this is all part of the plan, and I'm not everyone likes things being kept simple. It's just, it's so, man, like it's such a radical departure that, I don't know, people thought that Jeremy Pruitt worked some sort of like, magic fairy dust. Like he was the sort of, not the antithesis, but he was the equivalent of Jimbo on defense, right? Everyone thought that he had an answer for everything. Jimbo has 7 options on every play. Somebody should always get open. There's no excuse for the ball ever hitting the ground in Jimbo Fisher's offense. And then with Jeremy Pruitt, it just felt like at any, no matter what a defense threw at, or an offense threw at them, they would find a way to stymie it, whether he was here or when he got to Alabama. But this whole thing, I don't want to say revolution, but I mean, this sort of mindset, let's keep it simple, let's just play fast and have fun. I keep going back, and I don't know how many, go back the last 10 years, how many teams that subscribe to that sort of philosophy have won a national championship. But you can say, well, they haven't had the sort of the toys and the bells and whistles that you're going to have here at Florida State. I mean, Oregon almost made it happen. I mean, they almost beat Auburn in a national title game. So I mean, if they can pull this off, it'll be fantastic. It really would. People think I'm rooting against Willie for some reason. I'd love to see it work. I don't know. I'm the guy that thinks that football is really complicated still.
I think the whole topic is complicated because, on the one hand, I get why people are so hungry for a more simplistic approach because we saw what we saw the last couple of years. I mean, defensively, they played like they were in quicksand sometimes. Yeah. I mean, you have a bunch of great athletes, but they did. The defensive line, they were playing that kind of a two-gap thing where they had to read and react, and they weren't just penetrating like we all grew up with Mickey Andrews defenses. People liked seeing guys shoot a gap and get after the quarterback. Well, they weren't doing that the last couple of years. They've been playing a lot more read and react and kind of having to read multiple gaps, which, makes it more challenging. It takes away some of your athleticism, some of your playmaking ability. And then, but on the flip side of it, you're right. Jeremy Pruitt, I mean, when he was here, you would hear these stories about him. Like if you went in his office, he would have like all these printouts of all these different things and numbers and statistics and tendencies and stats and, like a mad scientist. Like he would just lock himself in this office with all these printouts scrambled around his desk and on the floor. But he was able to teach it. I think that's the key. Yeah. You can be sophisticated and complicated maybe if you've got kids who can get it and the right kinds of kids, which they did in 2013. And you also have a teacher who can teach it. I think what happened the last couple of years, they didn't have maybe either. So what this may be, I mean, we don't know. What this may be is this is the approach for right now for this team to get as good as they can get quickly. And then maybe once you've got the right guys, the guys you want, once you've got more time to get things in place, then maybe you kind of start adding in some of the wrinkles and things like that. Maybe this isn't what he would be in year 3, but maybe it's what you have to do in year 1.
See, I want to ask him this. I don't know whether to ask him this after or before practice or to ask him this after the Garnet and Gold game or to ask him this in August, a week out before Virginia Tech. I mean, this was a team that last year was preseason ranked number 3. They finished 7-6.
They rallied. They finished 7-6. They were 2-5 at one point.
Snatching out victory from the jaws of defeat. I want to almost ask him and get his feel for, is this team closer to being the third best team in the nation, or is this team closer to being just 76th in the nation and 7-6 playing in some third tier bowl game? Now, I don't think that's going to happen.
What do you think his answer would be?
I think he'd be like, well,
what do you think is real? Not what he would say to us.
What would he say to us?
Yeah, because you went into character. What do you think he really? What do you think he thinks?
Like if he's in an office or talking to his
he's in the
office.
He thinks they're closer to the number 3 team, don't you think?
Yeah,
not super close to that.
I think he's like,
but he doesn't think this should have been a 7-6 team.
Yeah, I got Cam for 2 years. I got Cam for this year and then I have him for next year. And James Blackman's pretty good. If I can just keep all these kids, I think he's obviously going to win more than 7 games this coming season. So it's going to be a step in the right direction. I would hope he would. I hope he would believe that. I do, but I don't know, man. Like the more I think about it, it's such a weird offset on defense because Corey and I talk about it a few times, and people got upset the way I describe or assess certain guys on the defense because it's practice and It's funny how that works, right? When a guy does really bad in practice, it's not a big deal. Like, you're overlooking things. But then when they read a practice report, the guy had 2 sacks. Man, watch out. Make room for a Lombardi trophy in the trophy case. This guy's got it this year. Peter Boulware, watch out. Just like the defense, I just don't know, man. Like, we did the previews in the man cave for the War Chant report, and talked about, listen, the starting front four for Florida State, you feel, is maybe as talented as any front four in the entire nation. I mean, Marvin Wilson.
You're talking about going into last season?
Yeah, no, going into this season. Going to this season. Like all that talent is there, at least on paper, but we haven't seen it produce anything. But at the end of the day, I mean, the one thing that kept me sane through all the chaos last year was the belief, the things that were floated out there, that Charles Kelly probably was not going to return as the defensive coordinator. So I feel like no matter what they've lost in terms of talent, I do feel like Harlan Barnett scheming things up, letting these guys read one thing and just go play football, attack guys, try to hurt people, not in a bad way, but, fast, physical, and, his whole thing, is that his whole mantra. I feel like that'll, I don't want to say offset the loss of guys like Derwin and Josh Sweat, but, I mean, this defense, for whatever they haven't produced yet, I feel like this is the right way to go about doing it. Like you mentioned, this is year one. I mean, you can't throw, Calc 2 at these guys right now.
Yeah, and I think it's similar. It could be similar to what we saw with Mark Stoops. When Jimbo first took over and hired Mark Stoops, his whole, like, I honestly believe Mark Stoops' philosophy, like the first 10 pages of his plan for that season was just like confidence building and getting those guys to stop, because he inherited a defense from 2009. That defense. They were like, abused children. I mean, they must have been just a completely shell of themselves and couldn't trust each other or trust their coaches. I mean, it was a disaster in 2009. So his big thing was just trying to build those guys up and make them believe and make them have some confidence and play hard. And that worked. That 2010 defense was pretty good. It was a lot better than it was the year before. And then by 2011, I mean, they started putting up some crazy sack numbers. I mean, those next couple of years they played really well defensively. But it's funny. It goes back to the whole thing. It's like, and I listened to Jeff and Tom talk on Jeff's show.
Jeff Cameron Show, 3 to 6 p.m. weekdays here on ESPN 979 Tallahassee.
Exactly. And they were talking about how, at the end of Mickey Andrews' tenure, everybody wanted something more sophisticated, that it was too simple. The problem wasn't what Mickey did was too simple. The problem was he didn't have players anymore. And you can't play that style of defense without ends and corners, and he didn't have ends and corners anymore. So suddenly Mickey Andrews, the games passed him by. No, FSU couldn't recruit anymore because they had an 80-year-old head coach or close to it. And so the difference is now I think they do have, you put up Marvin Wilson and Josh Kando. I think Stanford Samuels and Lamonte Taylor at corner are really good. The safeties, I mean, Hampson Nasruldeen and Cyrus Fagan and those guys, I mean, they've got a lot of talent at the back end and up front. The linebackers, I think, are going to be a little iffy, again, because none of those guys have really played much, but they do have some young talent. But, again, I think that gets you to, if you play simple, get those guys playing fast, I think that gives you a better chance of winning 9-10 games than, trying to do everything you want to do over the long term, because that may set you. I mean, that could be worse. That could be counterproductive, I think, in your first season.
You can break them before you can make them.
That's a good point.
I like that line. I'm going to keep. I subscribe to it. I liked it a lot. By the way, take a lap, Byron. No ends, no corners in 09. Craig Yarborough likes to have a word with you. He'll do so on this commercial break. We'll be right back after this. Is Wake Up Port Chan here on ESPN 979 Tallahassee.
The excitement of the Willie Taggart era at Florida State is in full force. That's why now's the perfect time to sign up at warchant.com. Warchant.com will have wall-to-wall coverage of spring football practice, including the latest on position battles, coach and player interviews, video features, and in-depth analysis. Warchant.com's three-team writers Gene Williams, Ira Schofel, and Corey Clark have 50 years of experience covering the Seminoles. And Warchant.com is the only FSU media outlet with a dedicated, full-time recruiting analyst in Tallahassee with the latest on the 2019 class. For your 30-day free trial subscription, head to warchant.com and use promo code WARCHANT30.
So does this like qualify as techno music?
Pretty close. Edging up on the line of it, I'm sure.
See, we had techno before you guys even know what techno was, you millennials. Although I saw somebody post something the other day that said people born in 1982 are the cutoff line, which is me. So I'm like, technically, yeah, I didn't sleep well because I found that out. He's Ira Schoffel, the managing editor of WarChant.com. I'm Aslan Hajavani, the director of digital media. This is Wake Up War Chant right here on ESPN 97.9 Tallahassee. Brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. And there are 3 locations over in the College Town District, Massa Social, Central, and Township. Go ahead, check them on out for the spring game. Saturday, 6 p.m., Doak Campbell Stadium, Garnet team versus the Gold team afterwards. Rob Van Winkle, a.k.a. Vanilla Ice, Salt and Peppa, and Rob Bass will all be at Doak Campbell Stadium. When was the last time there was a concert at Doak Campbell? I felt like, was there a season where they would do that after every game almost? Or
no, well, they've been doing these country concerts the last year or so. They had, didn't Brad Paisley, I think, get a concert? And last year at the spring game, after the spring game, they had one country guy, and I can't remember his name. But anyway, it's pretty impressive how they do it. I was talking to somebody yesterday at practice, and they were saying, so if the stage is there, they only going to play in half the field. I'm like, no, man, they're going to play a football game, but then they put the stage together in like 20 minutes. It's nuts. Like by the time we go in and do interviews and come back, they'll already be doing the concert.
I went to a spring game at Starkville one time for Mississippi State, and I don't know if they were doing renovations on the stadium or something. They only played on 50 yards.
Oh, did they really?
Arena football was horrible.
That's bad.
That was the most arduous day of my career because I actually went to Ole Miss. I went to Oxford. Their game was at 11 o'clock. Their spring game, covered their spring game, drove to Starkville because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it all. And then I remember getting to Starkville. I'm like, this sucks.
How far is that drive?
About hour 45.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not the worst, but it wasn't the best. I definitely don't recommend it to anybody that's in Mississippi listening to the show. Don't do it.
Doubleheader.
Yeah. Where's this rank for you, Ira? Is this the most anticipated Garnet and Gold game in your storied career?
That's a good question. Man, I don't know. It seems like, the beginning of the Jimbo era, there was a lot of anticipation. I feel like, man, back in the old days, it seemed like spring games were a bigger deal. I just remember, in the early 2000s even, this is after the Dynasty era, I remember the one year, it was 2001, 2002 or 2003, they moved it to Capital City or whatever. They moved it to Cox Stadium, I think, because they were doing some renovations at
what
Doak.
year?
It was early 2000s,
okay.
03 maybe, somewhere in there. But I just remember Rick's, the team had to take a bus to the stadium, wherever it was. I think it was at Cox Stadium. And Rick's, this is actually a complimentary story about Chris Ricks.
It's fine. I love it.
Chris Ricks had a line of people wanting his autograph. It must have been 2002 or 2003, but people were still believing. They were still believing that this was going to be the year for Chris Ricks. And I just remember the buses were waiting because he was signing autographs, and he loved signing out some autographs. And so he's just, there's a line of people. There's a couple hundred people waiting to get Chris Ricks' autograph. It was kind of crazy. But no, people it seemed like they really got excited about spring games, and then it kind of waned, just attendance for all college sports, but even more so for a spring game. So to me, it's for Florida State, it's either got to be a new coach or something after the national championship game that next year, there was a lot of excitement. Jameis was coming back.
Or take it on the road, go to Orlando.
Yeah, that was a little bit different. But yeah, I think just the run-of-the-mill spring games. Unless you're in Alabama or I don't even know who, Tennessee maybe, somewhere else, where there's just nothing else to do and they love some college football, it's hard for people to get excited. But this is, certainly this one is. There's talk they may have 40,000, 50,000 people at this spring game.
So later today, we're gonna actually hang out with Willie, the War Chant guys. So everybody keeps posting on WarChant.com, I saw somewhere else that Willie talked. It's yeah, everyone had to take a number. Well, not really. They just, they let us go. We're going last.
We think we're last.
Submitted without comment. We're going last. Unless Andrea Adelson gets them after practice today.
There's no doubt about that. But we're finally going to get to have our sit down with Willie, and we appreciate FSU for scheduling that, setting it up, and it'll be a good opportunity for us to sit down with him and just talk to him away from a press conference or a gathering of 40 reporters or 30 reporters, whatever it is in the mornings. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll see, and we've got some things we want to talk to him about. But again, I think that's the it goes back to the whole thing that, one of the things we complained about under Jimbo's tenure was that, we knew Jimbo really well from a media standpoint because we dealt with him all the time. But we didn't always have a good opportunity to get to know the rest of the staff or the players because it seemed like every week we would get the same 4 or 5 players to talk to. This spring has been awesome because they have brought out different guys every practice, it seems like. I think the only guys that have really gone more than once were the quarterbacks and maybe a couple other players. Jacquez Patrick, maybe?
I don't think so.
I think only one for him.
I think the quarterback's the only people that have gone, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I like that.
So it's been awesome to get to know some of these other guys, tell some, let people know who these guys are a little bit. You put up your videos so they can, we had Pokey Wilson yesterday.
Ontario Wilson is Pokey. Why they call him Pokey?
Because his grandmother said he looked like a Pokemon character, which when you've got 3 daughters like I do who are big into Pokemon, I was all fired up about it, and I wrote a whole story about it with a lot of Pokemon references.
Was that the headline? Got to get them all?
Got to catch them all.
Got to catch them all.
How great is that? He's a receiver, and he got Willie Taggart saying he's got crazy ball skills, and he makes all these crazy catches, and the Pokemon saying, Aslan, is got to catch them all. It's like, it's poetry. I was saying you should have seen me grinning as that was all.
I wish I could have. I'm sure as soon as you were just like, oh, man. I'm going to pen the column that's going to win me the Associated Press honors.
So I told when I was driving home with my kids yesterday afternoon, I was telling them about it because they are huge Pokemon fans and they got the Pokemon Go app and all that. And I was telling them about it. And one of my middle-aged daughters, a little sarcastic, she's like, so are you going to get fired? I'm like, no, man, this is gold. I'm not getting fired. Like, they're worried that I'm going to lose my job over that. So hopefully I won't, but I thought it was funny.
The best way was the way he described it. He said, when I came out my mama, my grandma said I look like a Pokemon. So I've been called Pokey. And then we also spoke to Nasir Upshur. And this is a good thing. And listen, I know it's difficult because, working in local TV for so many years, my bosses were news people first. So they didn't care about schemes. They don't care about up-tempo, lethal simplicity. They don't care about it. They want guy who broke his arm last year and is coming back now, redemption tour.
Tell me a story.
Yeah, the stuff behind the stats and all that kind of stuff. Well, then this is the complete 180 is War Chant. I mean, this is hardcore fandom. And I know you kind of made fun of it. When you make fun of it, in jest, you typed out and gave everybody an update of what was going on at practice the other day. And you're like, we got to speak to Nasir Upshur. He gave us a story on why his nickname is Pops. And in case you want to know, folks, it's because his mom said he looked like a pumpkin seed. And,
I think she just called him pumpkin seed.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're my little pumpkin seed.
And then she later changed it to poppy seed.
Yeah, he didn't look like a seed. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ira, for correcting things. Yeah.
In case anybody's home going,
Nasir's a handsome
so
young
our tight
man.
end look like a pumpkin seed.
This is who we're relying on next year. Guys that look like pumpkin seeds. No, I love it. Like, that's the kind of stuff that my news director at any station would have ate up. They would love that.
So you didn't like my comment?
You're like, all right, we'll get to some more. You're like, all right, that's enough of that stuff. We're actually going to talk about football in a little bit here. And then even Safid, so I'm the guy, everybody. If you actually listen to the interviews that I post every single day on YouTube at these practices.
And at warchant.com.
Correct. I'm usually the guy that's asking it. You'll hear me off camera going, hey, man, what's going on? How are you?
You're the hype man for the interviews.
It's just you gotta soften them up. Like when nobody says anything, these guys are pushed up against a wall, and it's just like 10 seconds of awkward silence, and it's like, so insert their coach's name. So what's it like playing for Coach so and so?
How do you like the music?
Yes, yeah, right. So try to warm up a little bit. So I think, and I hope, and I do think it's the case right now that fans are actually getting to get more invested. I mean, and everybody's all in right now, obviously, but to finally, get some stories behind who these kids are has got to make the experience for these fans that much better. Oh,
there's no doubt. And it's what's funny about it is, Nasir Upshur would have gone through his whole career. We never know why he's called Pops. And it's not just that's what he goes by on Twitter. That's what all the teammates call him. Same thing with Ontario Wilson. His Twitter handle is Pokey Wilson. Everybody calls him Pokey. But we would never know that because we would never talk to him. I just think back to Naquan Murray.
Do we know why he's called Noonie?
We do. But when Corey and I were at the Democrat, Gerald Ensley would always ask us. And no, the big one he would always ask us was Kermit
Whitfield.
Kermit Whitfield's that his
Kermit
name?
Whitfield, yeah.
No, is that
it's
right?
Kermit Whitfield. I
Who's
swear to
Kermit
God,
Rudolph?
Travis Rudolph.
Man, I just merged those two. I might be having a stroke here. Kermit Whitfield. Anyway, they all blur together. Receivers.
No, I mean,
6-foot receivers.
It was just a bargain bin guys after Kelvin and Rashawn left, so it's okay.
It's the other guy, just numbers. But anyway, Kermit Whitfield, Gerald Ensley, may he rest in peace, when we worked with him at the Democrat, would always ask us, how did Kermit get his nickname? How did Kermit get his nickname? And we're like, dude, we haven't talked to Kermit Whitfield. When he's a fifth-year senior, maybe we'll talk to Kermit and we'll find out. But anyway, we did find out later. But yeah, no, so it is good to get those. I was kidding about it. I'm glad we did get. It was just funny that like I think it was the first two guys we got to talk to. Like half of their interviews were about their nicknames. It was just, I don't know, it just kind of cracked me up, especially because it was fine. It was fine.
Well, listen, we've been getting different players every single day, but there's only. I mean, we've asked the same questions.
Oh, I'm definitely done with the dancing and the music questions. I'm definitely done with. I've been done with that for about a week. I'm like, can we move on? Yeah, they're having fun. I mean, it's just hard to kind of keep writing that, but I mean, it's good to hear. We've got a consensus now, I think, that this is more fun.
Fun is a good thing. It's a good thing. Hopefully, you guys are having fun too. We'll wrap up the show right after this. It's Wake Up War Chant, ESPN 979 Tallahassee.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
I'm Aslan. He's Irish O'Fell, the managing editor of WarChant.com. Filling in for Corey Clark. The Coracle will rejoin us tomorrow when we do our Renegade Express blowout mailbag. We'll also do some over-under propositions courtesy of founder and administrator of WarChant.com, Gene.com Williams. Speaking of nicknames, Pops, Pokey.com, still the best nickname in all of sports journalism. Show brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. There are 3 great locations over in the College Town District, Madison Social, Central, and Township. So Corey's going to be coming back, so let me just get your thoughts on things then, Ira, in the meantime. And if you, folks, Five-star Schoffel's here. You know what that means. Go to iTunes, fill out a 5-star review. Thanks for being here again, Ira. So let me get your thoughts on things, because, for, Corey, sometimes Corey likes big picture, macro stuff. Let's go micro level. Who's going to be the Heinzman?
I wonder if they're going to do that. I guess they'll do the Heinzman.
You
right?
got to. Right?
You got to.
Jimbo still did the Heinzman.
Yeah, we're all tradition with this crew. So the Heinzman Award.
Well, how about this? If Blackman, if he gets it, does that make you feel any differently about who's going to be the starting quarterback on Labor Day?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Heinzman is delivered, because we've had the Heinzman's had a checkered past the last few years. I don't know if you remember, Jacob Pugh won it last year, which I think, or you think he was
a real MVP. He was
something.
a real MVP last year.
And then there was a couple of years ago, it was Rick Leonard, I think, won it one year. Or he won like MVP of offense or something. The award, Jimbo's awards were more like, I don't know if it's motivational, but it wasn't like necessarily the best player. But anyway, I would say that's a tough one. Maybe Brian Burns, maybe. I think he's played pretty well. I think I can't imagine anybody in the offensive line. I mean, I guess maybe Cam Akers, but
he's been hurt, kind of,
he's missed a little time. I doubt he would give it to a quarterback because partly for the reasons you mentioned. So maybe as somebody on defense, I'm going to go with Brian Burns.
All right. I like that.
On a limb.
I mean, defensively, who are some of the guys that you feel good about? Because, we talked about, potential versus production. There's not a lot of guys on that team that have produced. And I don't know, maybe we're not talking about DeMarcus Christmas enough. Maybe, why is he not poised to have a big breakout? We keep talking about Burns and Kano, and Kano hasn't been out there at all. I mean, who are some of the guys that if you have to project, because, again, at the end of the day, man, especially the linebackers, we haven't really seen these guys in high leverage situations a lot. Who are some of the guys that you feel when we're talking about this in 5-6 months, you're like, Haslam, see, you're skeptical, but I told you these guys are going to be good, and look at this guy hit, this guy hit, this guy hit.
I like the secondary a lot. I really do. I think that Stanford Samuels and Levante Taylor will play very well. I think a corner, And then I think they've got some playmakers at safety. My guess is it's going to be a little high risk and high reward. I do think that Cyrus Fagan's a playmaker. Hamza Nasruddin's a playmaker. I like those young safeties. I like the young DBs overall. But my guess is they're going to give up some plays. I just have a feeling, with youth usually comes that trade-off. You're going to see the potential, but you're also going to see the gaffes. And I think it's probably going to be somewhat similar at linebacker. Now, the good side is, you just as long as the big plays come also, you can live with some mistakes. You can live with some breakdowns. You can't have the breakdowns and then also play kind of passive, catching tackles, letting everything happen and coming up and making the play. You got to force the issue. So, if they give up a big play, give up a big score, but the next time out, Brian Burns, forces a fumble, you get a scoop and score, or, one of these DBs makes a big play, at least you're creating something. You're creating some easy points and easy opportunities, which is something they haven't done on defense the last couple of years.
Offensively, and the reason we're going down this route is because also on the Tribal Council over on warchant.com, there is a over-under thread that I mentioned. Gene Williams put up on the message board some of the propositions, some numbers, some stats, whether this guy's going to have this many catches or that many catches. So offensively, who do you think will be the leading receiver in the Garnet Gold game? Should we say receptions, or do you want to go receiving yards, which you feel more comfortable with?
I'm more of a receiving yards guy. I think the receptions thing can be kind of it could be silly if you got 6 catches for. Yeah,
it's not a points per reception spring game, folks. You fantasy nerds. I'm kidding. I play fantasy football too, everybody.
I'll probably go with Tamorian Terry.
Yes!
Just because I think that
yes,
he's got potential to break 270-yarders, but I do want to see DJ Matthews. He's going to, if you're going by receptions, he's probably going to be the guy with the most receptions and probably the most highlight reel type plays, because I do think he's going to be really fun to watch in this offense. But I think Tamorian Terry's got a chance, especially. I didn't look at the roster. If he's on the same side with Blackman, those two guys like to connect for some big passes.
Blackman is on the gold team. He does not have Tamorian Terry. You dropped this on the Tribal Council the other day, and it was after Corey and I had a rendezvous on the show. But you pointed out that DeAndre Francois had actually participated in 7-on-7 full pads for the first time in spring. I'm probably the guy that's. I'm not going to give myself credit for steering opinion because most people disagree with my opinion on things. But I've been of the belief since, I don't know. I guess maybe the bowl game that just like this is James Blackman's job to lose by and large, and not because of anything really wrong with DeAndre. I was always under the impression that this was a very debilitating injury that he suffered, and it was going to be really tough for him to bounce back. But the fact that he was able to do some 7-on-7 stuff in the spring, I imagine a lot of that's health based, obviously, that he's able to do that. But I don't know. I would think that at some juncture, maybe Willie would not let him do that if he wasn't living up to the end of the bargain that Willie wants him to do in terms of being a leader off the field. So, how much, I don't want to say emergence of DeAndre Francois, but just in terms of what he's been able to do and just seeing him out there, what have been kind of your impressions on him and out at practice for the last few weeks?
Yeah, look, I think he's in the mix. I think the reason I would not, like we put out our projected depth chart for the fall the other day, and on offense I put Blackman as a starter just because I do still think there are two pretty big hurdles that DeAndre's got to overcome. One is he's got to get 100% healthy, and he's from what everybody says, he's been ahead of schedule. He's doing really well, but there's no necessarily definitive time frame. Okay, he's going to be good to go on June 1st or July 1st. We don't know yet. So that's one. And the other one is, the other part, just being a good teammate, being a good leader. James Blackman is an A+ in that category. He's a guy that everybody loves. It's just funny. The other day I was driving by the stadium. I saw James Blackman and 4 or 5 other players walking, and you could just tell, when you see a group of people and you can kind of tell who's the son that everybody kind of gravitates around. Yeah. That's what he is. He's that guy. So he's an A+ in that category, plus he's healthy. So that gives him 2 advantages. If all things were equal, I think DeAndre might be a better fit for this offense. I've always loved DeAndre Francois' passing, especially the intermediate and underneath stuff. Now, he didn't look good in that 2 years ago. When he was a true freshman, his underneath passing.
Freshman.
When he was a redshirt freshman. his passing in the flats. He missed a lot of those throws. He didn't ever look comfortable with that. He didn't get through his progressions the way Jimbo wanted him to. But when you watch him just throw on air or just throw in 7-on-7 Pascal type stuff, he can put it where it needs to be. He's very accurate on those passes. So I think in this kind of offense where you're getting the ball out quickly, you're not going through a ton of progressions and all that. I think he could be very effective, and I think the running ability makes him really dynamic. So I think he's got a good chance. If he can get healthy and he stays on track, I think it's going to be a good battle. But those are two big ifs. So, to your point, I agree. I think James Blackman has a big lead in the race, and I don't think he's done anything to lose the lead. But if Francois keeps coming, I think it could be a good race when we get to preseason.
Francois coming. All right, last question before we go, Ira. What do you want to talk to Willie about? Like, you're going to have Willie, you're going to be in his office kicking it like
tip it off
BFFs.
to all the other media, man. The biggest thing, man, I really want to talk to him about some of his kind of inspirations when he was young. Because one of the things that I think is interesting, and, again, hopefully nobody on the beat is listening and is going to write this before I do. But, look, he's made no secret about the fact that he wants to be the first African-American head coach to win a national title. He said that.
Has he?
He said it at Oregon. And,
okay,
and I know, and I've talked to some people around him here. He's never hid the fact that, I think he, number one, he wants an African-American coach to win a national title, but I think he'd like to be
that guy.
The guy. I saw an interview when he was at Oregon where he talked about it. Not because he need to build himself up, but because he wants to be an inspiration or let the youth see that that's something that's possible, just like having a black president or a female, person in power, whatever it is. So, to inspire. So I'm curious who were the inspirations to him, because, when he was a kid, there weren't a lot of black head football coaches. There weren't a lot of, certainly at a program like Florida State. So that's one of the things I was kind of, because if the idea is you want to do that or accomplish that because you want to let kids know it's possible, well, why did you think it was possible? And kind of who are some of the people that inspired him and those types of things. I think that's what to me, I would have liked to have done this 3 months ago or 4 months ago when he first got here, but that didn't happen. The cards didn't play out that way. We had to wait, a third of a year. But we're going to get to do it today, Aslan. We're going to go over there. So that's one of the big things I want to talk to him about.
I remember when they announced that Odell was going to go into the Hall of Fame, and, state-run media had the video of Odell finding out about that at practice, and Odell talked about how much he loves Florida State. And then he got really, he didn't get, I don't know if he got emotional, but he just kind of paused for a little bit to gather his thoughts. And then, he's like, I want to win a national title for this guy. And he points at Willie Taggart. It's like, so he can be the first minority. I'm like,
that whole staff feels that way.
Like, dang, you guys have only known each other for like 4 months. Like he makes it seem like that's his life's mission now. Like Odell Hagen's life mission now is. I think
it's intertwined with the possibility of helping a black football coach. Because the thing is, how many schools can win a national title? So a lot of things have to fall into place here. You have to have a dynamic coach, and have to be at a place that can win a national title. So not many of those guys get those types of jobs. So here you got one, and this is the one he can impact and help happen. So I don't think it's just about getting Willie that honor, and I don't think it's that about Willie for Willie. I think it's just about making that happen for. Again, the next generation of young, black kids to think that, hey, that's even something that's remotely possible. So I do think it's important to them. When we've talked to some of the coaches a little bit off the record on the staff, and a couple of the other ones expressed the same thing. It's something that really kind of is driving them. They want Florida State to win a national title, but they also they know what that would mean for, the people that are coming up behind them.
That'd be huge, because in all of the success that this program has had, there's never, ever been any sort of bigger, I don't want to say cultural impact, because, Alabama wins a national title. Nothing shakes with the culture of that. But, when Florida State wins a national title, there's usually there's something else going on behind the scenes that's taking away from them being successful, that it feels like if it's going to happen with Willie, it's going to probably be done the right way. And I'm not saying that Jimbo did things the wrong way, but I just don't think that he's going to enable people and create the sort of I don't know. I don't want to get down that road because, you have to defend your quarterback at that point, but let's not get down that road. But anyhow, I just think that, it'd be really awesome.
If there was a positive storyline to go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, one thing.
Oh, yeah.
Pump Up the Jam.
Yeah.
It's got to be techno music because the group was Technotronic. I just looked that up. Although if like the little Wikipedia thing described it as like dance pop or something like that. But I think if they're called Technotronic, Aslan, I think you nailed it. That it's techno music.
No excuses for not getting anything done at work now, folks. That question's been answered to you. It's now off your conscience. Ira Schoffel, the managing editor of WarChant.com, joining me here on Wake Up Warchant today. Thank you, Ira. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, buddy. Anytime.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day. Jeff Cameron coming up at 3.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.